I don't bother to flinch. Excellent job, Betty. Thanks, Spin. Thanks. A well-known lead actor drank real whiskey during 47 takes of the same scene. The group kept giving him fake alcohol, but he wouldn't take it. By the end, he had drunk enough to knock out several grown men. He carried on as if nothing had happened. Another star used a syringe to put vodka into oranges and then walked around the set peeling fruit. He was seen as healthy by everyone. The truth was a lot worse. These weren't one-off events. Over the course of several decades, Hollywood's biggest stars got drunk, stayed drunk, and still put on legendary shows that fans love today. Richard Burton had a fire that burned brightly through life, even when it should have burned him down. People talked about his singing, how strong he was on stage, his Shakespeare, and his rough relationship with Elizabeth Taylor. But people who saw him up close knew something else. The way the man drank didn't seem real. In the 1960s, he fit right in with the Hollywood thugs and kept a schedule that even his friends found strange. Burton himself said that he could drink 3 bottles of hard booze in one day when he was really drunk. The doctors begged him to take it easy. Someone told him that one more drink might be the last one he ever has. Burton paid attention, nodded, and then asked for a double vodka. Everyone could see how bad his habit was. His first moments became legendary. In 1965, when he shot the spy who came in from the cold, the crew gave him tea or colored water to drink instead of whiskey. He said no. Reality was important to him. He filled the glass with real scotch and said he wouldn't need many takes. It took 47 tries to get the scene right. He drank every time he picked up the glass. He had drunk enough booze by the end to knock out several grown men. Still, he stood up straight and kept playing until the director said they were done. He was moving so slowly that people couldn't believe it, let alone speaking with such a steady voice. He was crazy everywhere he went. Burton and Liz Taylor made their own little paradise in Mexico in 1964, where they filmed The Night of the Iguana. It was full of sun, heat, and endless tequila. Most days, they drank at least 1 bottle in a day. One afternoon, Burton drank 21 shots in a row. He felt like he could do anything, so he walked right into the ocean, thinking that he might beat a shark. He meant it, even though it sounded like a joke. The crew ran after him quickly. His life was saved in some way during the try. In spite of the fact that he had almost half a gallon of alcohol in him. He couldn't be stopped by even the calmest sets. His work on the VIPs in 1963 is said to have made him drink half a gallon of cognac in one day. That is about 1.9 liters, which is about 76 units of alcohol. These days, experts say that you shouldn't drink more than 14 units of alcohol per week. Burton kept walking in front of the camera, though, and he looked calm. And putting on shows that seemed natural. People were interested in what kind of engine he had inside him and how long it could run. The truth is that he grew up around drug use. He drank a lot like his father, so Burton did the same. His body began to show signs of damage in the early 1980s. Surgery on him in 1981 showed that years of drinking had left hardened alcohol on some of his spine. Before the doctors explained it, it didn't seem possible. He had hardened alcohol crystals around his spinal cord. It was clear that he had been drinking away his pain for decades. Burton died of a cerebral hemorrhage at age 58 in 1984. Alcohol was like a shadow that he could never get away from at that very time. W.C. The round-faced comedic genius Fields made being drunk an art form on and off the screen. He never tried to hide the fact that he liked drinking. In the office, everyone got used to seeing him with a drink. The people who worked with him said he could drink 2 quarts of every day. At 100 proof, that's half a gallon, which is enough to kill most guys. Fields seemed to enjoy it a lot. During the 1930s and 1940s, he drank a lot. He even joked that it made him smarter. A co-worker who was lost once said that he keeps drinking. He keeps being funny, though. Fields had an act that sounded almost too good to be true. He drank 2 quarts of 6-to-1 martinis every day by the 1940s. This meant that they were mostly gin with a little vermouth. In the morning, he started the day with a tall glass of bourbon and had 9 more during the day. At night, he finished the night with several martinis. 10 straight bourbons and 6 martinis are enough to knock most people out. But Fields acted like that was just how things were. His role on TV and in movies was a great match for the real man. People saw a likable drunk. They thought he was pulling a trick. Really? He was drawing from the everyday life he led. That's what Hollywood did when they didn't like his behavior on set and tried to slow him down. Fields figured out how to get around every rule. Since studios wouldn't let him bring a flask on set, he just put gin in a thermos and labeled it as orange or pineapple juice. When the director told him off for drinking during a scene, he just said it was lemonade. The team knew they were wrong. In his last years, he could no longer drink. During 1942's Tales of Manhattan, he shook and slurred his words so badly that the tape could not be used. People knew the end was almost here when the scene was cut. He would sometimes act in ways that no one expected. He worked with Baby Leroy, a child character he clearly didn't like, on the 1934 movie The Old-Fashioned Way. He put whiskey in the baby's milk bottle one day. Because the 2-year-old got dizzy, work had to stop. Members of the crew were shocked. But Fields laughed. He was known as Hollywood's mean old drunk because of scenes like that, and he never tried to get away from that image. He kept a library of smart one-liners about drinking even though his health was getting worse. He said that before breakfast, he never drank anything stronger than gin. He made fun of the fact that he didn't like water because fish lived in it. Did things that shouldn't be talked about? He once said that he had lived on olives and drink for 46 years and thought that he had spent at least $200,000 on whiskey in his whole life. Still, the end came. His kidneys were torn apart by years of heavy drinking, and he was left with delirium tremens. He went to sanitariums and tried to get better, but he always relapsed. He passed away on Christmas Day 1946, when he was 66 years old. Because of a huge stomach bleed. I thought the last thing he wanted was one more drink. Because he was such a well-liked actor in the 1920s and 1930s, John Barrymore was sometimes called the Great Profile. But behind all that fame was a boy who had been drinking since he was about 15 years old. Later, he admitted it with a worn-out honesty, saying that he had been pretty much always drunk from that age on. It all began with his father, Maurice Barrymore. Maurice drank a lot and was loud on stage. He told his sons that falling down was a sign of power and that weak men should be carried home. The boy thought that drinking was part of the skill as he grew up. In the beginning, he kept things stable enough for them to get better. He was loved on Broadway. Hollywood came next. But around the middle of the 1920s, when he was at the height of his fame, something broke. He started drinking all the time. First, it ate his memory. Agents were scared by that part because an actor who can't remember lines is a risk. Soon, the teams didn't have a choice. They wrote his lines on chalkboards that were set up just off camera. You can almost feel him looking past the actors in some 1930s movies as he tries to read his own words. His face went from being smooth and sharp to swollen and old. Other players said in whispers that he seemed to walk a fine line every day between genius and failure. He did not try to hide the fact that he was drinking. He brought a bag of liquor to work and put real gin in fake cups. He drank real gin during takes on the 1940 Great Profile. In 1941, when he made Playmates, he played a washed-up version of himself that was eerily true. At one point, he read a line from Hamlet so quickly and forcefully that everyone on set stood still, their eyes wet and their voices shaking. He then broke the spell. Licked his lips and joked that it tasted like the funniest gin he'd ever had. The team wasn't sure if they should laugh or feel bad about themselves. That mix of sadness and humor stuck with him. He could show you how smart he was and then tell you he was falling short. By 1942, Barrymore's body was not in good shape. He was only 60, but he looked like he was 80. Damage to the kidneys, cirrhosis, pneumonia, and psychosis. On May 29, 1942, he died of pneumonia and kidney failure, which was made worse by cirrhosis. He kept his strange sense of humor even after he died. Gene Fowler, Barrymore's friend, leaned in close to hear his last words. Barrymore teased Fowler by asking if Fowler was Buffalo Bill's real son, then laughed and walked away. He seemed to want one last funny moment before the lights went out for good. Mark Spencer Tracy. Spencer. Tracy went through the same pain in a different way. 2 Academy Awards were given to him, and many people praised how naturally honest he was as an actor. But he had a secret fight with alcohol that got harder and harder to hide as the years went by. He grew up in Milwaukee in an Irish Catholic home. He started drinking early in life. In the 1930s, he was still able to get it to work. By the 1940s, MGM knew what to expect when he went missing. Tracy would disappear for 10 days at a time, which would stop all operations. The companies lost a lot of money because of those shutdowns. One biography said that these 10-day benders happened so often that MGM was aware of the losses and built them into his contracts. He would sometimes lock himself in a hotel room or sit in a pool for days during these episodes. There is a scary story about him putting warm water in the tub at the Beverly Hills Hotel, taking off all of his clothes, and staying there for a week with whiskey bottles. Don't take breaks. By the end of these binging episodes, he was shaking from insanity. Friends said he was sick and feeling bad about what he had done. They kept saying that he was beating himself up like he knew what he was doing to his body but couldn't stop. While making the movie, he tried to stay clean. He got by some days. A lot. He didn't. In the 1950s, there was an event that shows how strong the drives were. Director John Sturges had lunch with Tracy to talk about BlackRock's bad day. Everybody but Tracy got a drink, she chose coffee instead. After many years, Sturges asked when the desire finally went away. Tracy told him that he had been clean for 5 years, but he still wanted that martini at lunch. As much as the day he quit. A drink could make everything fall apart. In 1945, it happened after being sober for months. He told himself that 1 glass would be fine. It caused such a bad setback that doctors had to admit him to Johns Hopkins. From about 1932 on, records show that he followed a routine. He would drink for a week or 10 days after finishing a movie as a way to party. About every 8 months, these blowouts happened. After that, he would get sober again. Sometimes for years, only to fall again. Everyone around him felt his addiction. Even though he and Louise Tracy stayed together, his marriage got worse. People who knew him well knew that he could be mean when he was drunk. People got into fights and bad moods in bars. He was with Katharine Hepburn for 25 years and put up with a lot. She sat with him while he was sick and had detox shakes. She held his head while he threw up in the cold water one time. She revealed that he hit her when he was drunk. Biographers have written it down because it isn't often talked about. She also said that he was a tortured man whose problems were bigger than he was. People on the set looked up to him until he got drunk. He got to Father of the Bride late because he had been drinking all night. In Plymouth Adventure, he is said to have hit Van Johnson while he was high. In 1939, during Stanley and Livingston, he fell apart the most. When he vanished in the middle of the task, he had to be replaced by the studio. In the end, Hepburn and Tracy's wife were sent by MGM boss Louis B. Mayer to find him whenever he went missing. Most of the time, they found him tired and ashamed in a bathtub with bottles close. Errol Flynn. He moved through Hollywood as if he were looking for a thrill that he could never quite get. The way he smiled on screen and the way he stumbled off of it showed it. He was the face of daring in the 1930s and 1940s. Robin Hood and Captain Blood. People thought he was a brave hero every time he raised his sword. He was living in a blur, though, under all that shine. He drank before, during, and after the scenes. He was also sometimes brave enough to jump off of platforms during stunts because he was drunk. Sometimes it made him shake so badly that he could hardly hold a script. The cast and crew quickly learned something. Errol was really high if he wasn't already drunk. None of the states made things easier either. The end of the 1940s marked the start of his body's fight back. During the 1948 events of Don Juan, he passed out because of heart problems made worse by a long binge. Making things stopped. While he tried to get himself together. After 2 years, on Montana in 1950, director Ray Enright said he was having a hard time saying his lines. Warner Brothers talked about firing him so many times that no one could keep track, but each time they changed their minds. Because people still liked him. Errol didn't care that companies didn't let alcohol on set, he saw it as just another stunt. He used a syringe to put vodka into oranges. Next, he walked around peeling fruit and looked very healthy. Everyone was wondering why the sweet smell was a little too strong. It's likely that Flynn was drinking 80 proof when he ate an orange in the middle of a sword fight movie. It was easier for his friends to talk about him than to worry about him. David Niven said that with Errol, you always knew where you stood because he always let you down. He laughed at these things and poured himself another drink. He always said that he liked his booze old and his women young, and it was true. In the beginning, he liked good whiskey and wine. But as his health got worse, he switched to vodka because people said it left less of a smell. No one was fooled by the change. A lot of people saw him drink champagne by the magnum, change his drink to rum, and then show up to work the next morning with another drink in a thermos. Errol could only be found fighting or chasing women, according to Jack L. Warner. Often, the two would happen at the same time. Flynn got so drunk one night that he stole a police badge and went to jail. There was another night when he got into a fight in a bar. He was knocked out, woke up confused, and kept drinking like nothing happened. He felt time rush by. In the 1950s, he was said to look 45 to 70 years old. He passed out and died of a major heart attack in Vancouver in 1959, when he was only 50 years old. The doctor said that his heart and liver looked like those of an alcoholic 75 years old. His friends were shocked that he had lived that long. They buried him with 6 bottles of his favorite whiskey next to him. Some people thought it was appropriate because booze had been his best friend. O'Toole. In the same way, Peter O'Toole walked a line, but with a different kind of fire. The makers were amazed by his skill, and everyone else was amazed by his thirst. His role in Lawrence of Arabia made him famous in 1962. It was illegal in some areas for him to drink, but he did it anyway. He and Omar Sharif sneaked bottles into their bags. During breaks in shooting, they threw parties in Jordan where people laughed and yelled until the night seemed like they were not real. By the middle of the 1960s, O'Toole had found his group of friends in Richard Burton, Richard Harris, and Oliver Reed. The Hellraisers were what people called them. They drank through whole towns, one pub at a time. In the 1980s, Stephen Fry saw O'Toole make friends with a stranger at a bar. After drinking with him for a while, you should drag him to the show. O'Toole told them in a whisper that he liked the next part because it was where he walked on stage. Just then did he remember that he was supposed to be playing that night. He jumped out of his seat and ran backstage quickly. Time to close. He was never stopped. He and Peter Finch wouldn't leave a pub in Dublin when the owner tried to close it. O'Toole offered to buy the whole place so that he could keep drinking. He took out a checkbook and started writing. The next day, he woke up enough to tear the paper up and say sorry. In the 1970s, his body finally gave out. First it was pancreatitis. Then wounds that bled almost killed him. To save his life in 1976, doctors took out most of his stomach and his whole liver. Everything changed after the surgery. So he could not have a pancreas, he got diabetes and had to slow down. He still made fun of it. He said the worst afternoon of his life was the time he stopped drinking. He still tried to fall back into old habits. In the 1980s, he got drunk and gave a speech at a gala that upset everyone in the room. He lived to be 81, though. That was the only thing that set him apart from Burton. Ask Harris or Reed. Being sober for a while gave him time that his friends never had. Still, his past was full of enough chaos to fill a few lives. He got drunk with Burton and Red Beckett in 1964, then terrorized Italian streets in medieval clothes. Because he had been drinking the night before, he fell off a donkey during Lawrence of Arabia. He flipped his car in the desert but lived because his body was so drunk and relaxed, did not tighten up when it hit something. Sharif just shook his head and said, "That was Peter, the desert, a bottle, and no fear." He once drank a bar dry with Harris and Reed. He tried to rent an airplane to go to Dublin another time because he thought Guinness tasted better there. Before he got to the runway, someone stopped him. In the 1970s, O'Toole was said to have come very close to dying several times. He joked that the only difference between someone who drinks and someone who is an alcoholic is that the alcoholic takes money from your bag, while the drinker just borrows it. There was a man behind the jokes who knew he had gone too far but also knew he had lived. Theodore Reed. Whenever he smiled, he looked like he belonged in a fight. His drinking stories went back to the 1960s and 1990s and became part of bar lore. He said that one time he drank over 100 pints of beer in 24 hours. Some people said it was a story. Some people said they saw him empty glass after glass. Most people agreed that he could drink 30 pints in one night and still be able to stand. The exact number would depend on who told them. He used bars like stages. He would sometimes show off his bad tattoos in the middle of busy bars just to shock people. People got red in the face when he named those tattoos. People who went never forgot these times, even though they wished they could. Reed laughed like a child at how they thought about it. Who had just played a joke on them. Fought a lot. Getting drunk made him less fun and more scary. He dared people he didn't know to arm wrestling matches. He punched people sometimes. He had scars on his face from fights and broken glasses. He saw those marks as proof that his life was just the way he wanted it to be. Beginning to drink at breakfast in 1973 while shooting The Three Musketeers. He drank more beers during breaks. He passed out on set after lunch. And had to be brought back to life with cold water before the shooting could begin. His parts were filmed early in the day, before the sun went down and he lost his shape again. In 1999, his last day was in Valletta, Malta. During a break from filming Gladiator, he went into a bar called the Seahorse. There were young sailors from the Royal British Navy inside. He asked them to drink with him. He was 61 years old. They were only half his age. Some people who saw him said he drank 8 pints of beer, 12 rum shots, half a bottle of whiskey, and a few doubles of cognac. Even though he beat the sailors a few times, his body just couldn't keep up. He suddenly fell down. A huge heart attack. He passed away on the way to the hospital. Mr. Richard Harris. Richard Harris seemed to have a wild spirit that he couldn't keep in check. From the 1960s to the 1970s, it went on for a long time. At that point, everyone in London, New York, and Ireland seemed to have their own story about his nights out. His drinking was as strong as the way he acted, and at times it seemed like the drinking took over his whole life. He liked it when he could have a beer in London and then wake up in a different place. At first, it seemed like a joke, but you found out it happened more than once. Beginning with 1 pint, he would drift off into a trance, pass out, and awaken in a jail cell a long way from where his night started. He even said that it had become almost normal to wake up in jail after these accidental trips. That shows how far he went. He lost control of himself when he got drunk. If he got into traffic, he'd hit cars with his bare hands, like he could beat anything in his way. He stumbled into the street, slammed his hands on car hoods and windshields, and yelled at drivers until someone pulled him away. It happened more than once, and some joked that he was lucky he never got flattened. He even drank in a rhythmic way. He lived at the Savoy Hotel in London for a while. He became so regular at the bar that every day when it opened, staff sent a bellboy to get him. People who worked at his favorite bars knew him well. A few of them also feared him. He drank so much at Irish rugby games that the field felt like a stage. After getting drunk one night, he ran onto the field and tackled a player just because he thought it was the right thing to do. He stayed at Malachi's on the Upper East Side in New York until the bar stool felt like home. He would fight, drink, calm down, and then do it all over again. When he walked into P.J. Clark's, the bartender made his normal drink right away. No need to order. In some way, these places always liked having him back. Even when he was a bother, they couldn't stop him. He was crazy everywhere he went. As he was getting too drunk to work on the 1965 movie Major Dundee, he dared Charlton Heston to an arm wrestling match. Since Harris was full of whiskey and ready to fight, the match almost turned into a battle with sabers. Heston gave up before things got worse. In 1967, Harris came to work on Camelot so drunk that he couldn't remember his lines, so director Joshua Logan had to stop work for a whole week. Or move to the beat. Everyone knew that he could drink a lot. In the late morning, he drank beer. In the afternoon, he switched to whiskey. Late at night, he drank Irish coffee. Once he had drunk enough, he was strong enough to stand up. One story even says that he and Peter O'Toole tried to dry out a well-known Irish bar. The test was over when the owner stopped early, before the kegs ran out. In the late 1970s, things began to change. He was finally told by a doctor that he was killing his body. For once, they meant it. He locked himself in a hotel room for 2 weeks and detoxed against his will. His hands were shaking, and he was having seizures. And fear running through him all day and night. He was lighter, more tired, and sober when he came out. For years, he stayed mostly that way while he started a new career. He worked in movies like The Field and later played Dumbledore. He never really left Guinness behind, though. In the 1990s, he was sometimes seen at a club with a beer in his hand. He told the press that he was done with the tough stuff and stored only the black stuff. Buster Keaton. Buster Keaton seemed to have a calmer life, but his drug use was just as bad. He was known as the Great Stone Face, the quiet genius who could stand on the edge of a moving train or jump off a building without looking. But when the time of silence ended, he broke in a way. Around 1928, MGM signed him, and Keaton felt like he lost control of his work. Afterward, he said that this is when he began drinking and things went badly. He tried to stay steady at first. It wasn't there for long. Within a few months, he was drinking so much that he lost his energy and couldn't keep up on set. You can see the change in his eyes in movies like What No Beer from 1933. They look sad, worn out, and glassy. He moves less quickly. His face looks heavy, even though it's generally full of dry wit. And lost. People who study history said that he always looked tired. His binges became well known. He was last seen while the 1929 movie Spike Marriage was being filmed. The company got scared, and by the time they found him, he was in Mexico. He hadn't stopped drinking for 2 days. While the power was out, he married his nurse, May Scriven. The law still said he was married to his first wife. He didn't remember the event when he woke up. Soon after, the marriage was thrown out, and his first wife asked for a divorce. This story was all over the news. However, the truth was more serious than the headlines that made it sound like a slapstick act gone wrong. He went so far down the rabbit hole that he woke up with a wife he didn't know. Things got even worse from 1932 to 1934. He had to deal with a breakup, the deaths of close friends, and money problems. His drinking got worse. Noticed something strange. He could pass out after just 2 or 3 drinks. Some people learned to tolerate things, but Keaton didn't. He instead crashed quickly, which made him rough and put himself in danger. In the end, MGM decided they could no longer work with him. Having a few drinks at lunch could ruin a whole afternoon of shooting. He didn't always show up at all. And the company fired him because he turned down a job in 1933. One story just said that drinking was to blame. He used to be one of Hollywood's biggest stars, but now companies try to stay away from him. In some parts of his decline, there was a strange mix of comedy and sadness. He disappeared again one time while he was drunk, and a friend found him by a train track. He was doing pratfalls for a group of homeless people around a campfire, knocking over boxes and falling through the dust to make them laugh until well after midnight, even when they were drunk. He had to do what he did because he didn't know any other way to live. He chose to go it alone when he tried to stop drinking. He locked himself in a small house and had to deal with withdrawal on his own. Held on to a chair for hours so it wouldn't fall over. He bit his tongue so hard that it hurt. He couldn't stop shaking and saw things that weren't there. He was so scared that he thought he was going to die. Later, both his wife Eleanor and his doctors agreed that this time was very bad. After days of this torture, he was worn out and broken when he got out. In the end, he told someone that he lost everything when he slipped and begun drinking. That he knew it was true, you could tell by the way he spoke. He kept what he knew about what had happened to him to himself.